What's going on, everybody? LK here, back at it again with another video, and I want to talk with you guys about a really popular buzzword in fighting games. One of the most popular buzzwords that people who play fighting games like to use is neutral. It's one of those terms that, even though everyone sort of understands what this means, it's been so overused and diluted that people don't really have like a super accurate definition of this. So since neutral is so important to not just 2D fighters, but like 3D fighters, if you're into Smash, it's important in that, I wanted to kind of break it down from a Dragon Ball FighterZ perspective and hopefully help you understand what people mean when they say this. And by the way, if you like my guides, match analysis, character breakdowns, and all the other content I put on this channel, definitely hit subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel grow. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. So first, why is neutral a buzzword? Well, to be honest, I sort of feel like this is what happens when we play a game for a while and then a new game comes out and they have some type of either special move or special mechanic or something that makes people feel like the older game has better neutral. So of course, Dragon Ball, we'd have to talk about Super Dash, right? This move tracks from full screen and goes to wherever the opponent is. So then people go, this game has no neutral, but as time goes on and the game develops, this aspect of the game does get developed. So you might be like, if people are just saying this is neutral and this is not neutral, what is neutral? And the way I define it is like this. I define neutral as the time where neither player are directly attacking each other. So that means no one is doing rushdown, no one is getting comboed. It's a time where people are kind of running around the screen trying to quite literally catch the other player. So actually, I split fighting games into 4 phases. The neutral phase, which is what I just described. The offense phase, where you're directly doing pressure to your opponent. The defense phase, where you are receiving pressure from your opponent. And the knockdown phase. You might be thinking, hey, knockdown is the same as offense, but you have so much more advantage on a knockdown that you can do different types of offense on knockdown than you can in normal pressure. So using Dragon Ball as example, things like Gotenks Ghosts, or even the difference in what you could do with a level 3 knockdown shows this the best. Why does neutral matter so much? Why do people harp on it so much and tell people that they have good neutral or their neutral is trash? Because neutral is a really important phase of the game because you need this to start running your offensive game plan. In some cases, some characters might have such strong offensive sequences that maybe the best way to deal with them is by not getting into them in the first place. This means your neutral needs to be strong so your opponent doesn't catch you very easily. So what was Dragon Ball's problem? Originally, people said this game had no neutral because it was too jumpy. It was really hard to catch characters jumping around in the air, but over time they gave us not only tools, but we realized there are other things that help us catch people moving in this way. While every fighting game has their different ways of approaching neutral, especially if you consider the difference between a slow game like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus or Street Fighter versus more faster paced games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, like Guilty Gear, there are some core concepts that apply to basically every game. So let's explore a couple of these concepts using Dragon Ball FighterZ as examples. I'm going to start by just talking about things that basically apply to any fighting game, and then we'll touch on a couple of Dragon Ball specific things. So first, this is the one that Street Fighter players love the most, the Whiff punish. Whiff punishing refers to a move missing, your opponent missing a move, and then you punishing it somehow. So here's an example. Trunks does 5M, his standing medium. It has a long amount of total duration. The game tells us how long it takes for him to do the move. So if he misses, I can punish with basically whatever. This is impressive in both slow and fast-paced games. In a slow-paced game, you're not relay pressing a lot of buttons all the time, so being able to see exactly when someone presses some type of button and punishing it is quite a skill in its own right. Now, in a fast game, this could be kind of hard because they are just kind of moving really fast. You can't really find a spot for them to stop moving. So what is an example of a whiff punish in a faster game like Dragon Ball? A really common one is punishing beams. There are 2 main types of projectiles that are commonly used in the game. One is the Ki Blast, aka the weak projectile, and 2 is the beam. also known as a strong projectile. So the nice thing about the weak projectile is that if you miss, it has a lot of recovery, but you can cancel it into a vanish. This is a teleporting move that if you make the opponent block, you're plus. If you combo into it, you can extend combos with it. So even if you whiff, it's okay. And it gets to the point that you could whiff this, and then the opponent will still kind of respect it because they know they can't totally punish you for doing it. Now, on the other hand, if you miss a beam, you can't do anything. You can hear me trying to mash, right? I can't do anything if I whiff that beam. And look here. There's a lot of recovery on that beam whiff as well. So what do? We can basically whiff punish, whiff, whatever. The very common one is Super Dash, the move I referenced all the way at the beginning of this video that tracks from anywhere and will hit you. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You could use projectiles at different angles, or even use an invincible move to go through it. The really nice thing about being able to whiff punish means that your opponent will be much more careful about picking some of these moves. If you don't whiff punish, they'll be using a lot of moves that are technically very punishable, and you will get combos and stuff in good situations for you. But if you do use them, you'll discourage them from doing these things. Well, hopefully. Some people don't care about getting hit sometimes, but that's the idea anyway. The next one I want to talk about is advantage state versus disadvantage state. So I actually got this name from Smash. I think it just describes it perfectly. So even though we call this the neutral game, there are spots on the screen where you could be advantaged even though you're not directly attacking your opponent, or you could be disadvantaged even though they're not directly attacking you. This is one of the things that was originally so powerful about Kid Buu. He is advantaged in a lot of spots on the screen because of his moveset. He has a stomp with no hurt box basically that he could hit from almost full screen. He has a key blast, aka weak projectile, that catches jumps and forces people to the ground. When he's above you, he has many ways of altering his air momentum between his key blast and his rolling ball, which is kind of like a dive kick. These moves change the speed at he falls and where he would fall. Combine this with an assist, and you have a very, very, very powerful way of controlling space in neutral and making the opponent feel like they're really disadvantaged all the time. Feeling disadvantaged in neutral is a really bad feeling because it feels like you can't do anything. This is one of the reasons why people hate Z Broly so much. So of course he's big and powerful and strong, but he has a move that negates all projectiles. So things that we're used to seeing work will now not work on him. When he has this on, he has a big advantage in neutral, and you can't control space the way you would think of normally. So let's define a couple of spots where you are either clearly advantaged or clearly disadvantaged in Dragon Ball FighterZ. So in my opinion, unlike a lot of other fighting games, in Dragon Ball, when you jump one time, you are quite advantaged in neutral. Most characters have at least one move that alter their air momentum that doesn't include a system mechanic, which Super Dash does this for everybody. And you can call assist at any height. So you can super jump and call an assist, and your opponent might not be able to see you do it. Even after jumping twice, you still have quite a few air options left available. You could still stall, you could travel in the air with a special move if you have that available, you can call assist, there's a lot you can do. The first clear example of a disadvantaged state would be this. When someone whiffs a normal when they land. I used IAD, instant air dash, here as an example, but even landing on the ground counts as this. As you saw, Kid Buu is minus when he lands, right? Why is the game saying that? Because he's doing something, he's doing an attack, and I'm standing there and doing nothing. So the logic goes that you can't do something like that. So what do? You just swing on them when they land. This is a really, really, really important skill to have, not just in Dragon Ball FighterZ, but just in any faster paced fighting game in general. This is one of the signs of a rather skilled player, in my opinion. Someone who has the ability to do this quite consistently. In the case of Dragon Ball FighterZ, you do have backdash and you do have jump. So jump is extremely fast and you can't be hit out of the air once the jump has started, and backdash is just super fast. So quite often people will try to get away even in a disadvantaged state, but being able to identify that as a state where the opponent is straight up disadvantaged is quite important. So next I want to talk about a more recent type of term that people use. Is called the neutral skip. You might have heard this term before. It's an idea that you could do a sequence that basically ends neutral immediately if it's successful. Some characters have moves that just take you right next to the opponent, or there's like a certain sequence of moves that you could do that will just catch somebody immediately. Now, of course, Dragon Ball has a move that tracks from anywhere on screen to you, so this concept is pretty important in this game, but it can exist in some other games as well, for sure. So, since we still have our good old friend Kid Buddy on the screen, here's an example of one you see quite often in the game. So, let's break that down. So, super dashes at me, uses the dive kick, calls it as assist, air dash high. Being able to bring someone cleanly from the air to the ground in Dragon Ball with ease, with little thought, is very, very, very important considering how powerful jumping is. Think about it, right? In Dragon Ball, the show, they're flying around and shit. So in Dragon Ball, the game, we're jumping around. Forcing someone to the ground to actually establish offense is a really, really strong thing, especially if you could do it easily in a sequence like this. This is a very, very big part of the game. So big, in fact, that this literally won the Dragon Ball World Championship in Season 1. Neutral skips add quite a bit of pressure to the neutral game because you know, especially if you're aware that the opponent has this type of sequence, you know they're going to go for it. It makes them go from the neutral phase of the game immediately to their offense, which could, in a more aggressive, fast-paced type of game, just end the game or your character or whatever. But on the other hand, if you have such a sequence, then it's really powerful for you. Once you see your opponent in a spot where you can do it, you can just do it, and now you go from here to here. Next, I want to talk about the concept of controlling the screen in general. So this is going to be pretty Dragon Ball specific, but there are ideas here you could definitely apply to other fighting games. Here are the squads we have. We have my Gotenks Roshi Broly, and we have a pretty standard team of Kid Buu, Trunks, and GT. And if you've been paying attention to the video, I have the beam assist for both of them. So each character has moves that control space on their own. So if you look at Broly, for example, he has a Ki Blast that goes basically full screen. And the closer you are, you can see because he's so tall and so strong and so powerful, the closer you are to him, the bigger the dead zone is. So as you see here, the Ki Blast whiffs. But here, it does not. And he can also aim this upwards. So this is one of the areas he controls directly, right? He can do this, and he can do this. He then has this big horizontal line that goes full screen. He has this big horizontal line that goes full screen. He has this. It's like angled, traveling forward, but also going upwards move that also beats jumps. It'll catch the jump. He has this Ki Blast that goes downwards. So what am I trying to show here? Basically, that he has these lines that he covers. Or another way of looking at it is that when he's here, he basically controls where this Ki Blast goes. That is his zone. Now, on the other hand, Kid Buu, right? So he has the stomp that goes like almost full screen. This is the anti-jump, the 2S. This is 5S, right? Full screen, single hit Ki Blast. He has air beam, so anywhere in the air, he can just control directly across the screen. He has this, which goes down, cuts right across the screen. This for a little bit more of a shallow angle. So when he's here, you know that he can either do this or this and pin you down from mid-screen. And of course, at all times, both players know that they could just get in from anywhere, but it's kind of high risk. This game is a lot about general screen control and controlling big angles all at the same time. This is why double beam has been so prevalent. This is why this combination won Season 2. It controls so much of the screen. So definitely take some time and think about what moves your characters have to control what areas on the screen and how they interact with your opponent's moves. This brings me to the last thing I want to talk about, is the idea of commitment. This is probably the most outright advanced topic I'm talking about here. This can be applied to any fighting game, but of course we're using Dragon Ball as an example. The concept of commitment here is how much are you limiting your options when you choose to do something. So think about this, Super Dash, right? Super Dash, you can't do anything but Super Dash while you're Super Dashing, and there are very, very clear responses that lead into high return against Super Dash. So that's one extreme, right? Something that's so committal, you can't do anything but that while you're doing it. And you're flying straight at the opponent, and you and the opponent both know that there's a clear one-button answer to it. On the other end, the lowest commitment thing you could generally do is call your assists. When you call an assist, you are literally not doing anything. It's your assist that is acting for you and controlling space for you. This is the real strength of the beam assist. You control the whole ground, as we showed before with moves like Ki Blast and beams, but without the risk of being whiff punished at all. You can straight up jump at the opponent and call your assist and have that angle or beam or whatever you use protect you while moving forward. It's very, 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 very strong. Or think about a defensive assist like Roshi or UI Goku. Kid Buu was going ham under me, and I could super dash and take the risk, or I could try to get out of there with my air special moves. With my defensive assist, I could just call it and go into a combo. From point blank, it could be pretty hard to react to super dash. From point blank, it could be pretty difficult to react to a super dash while trying to use your Ki Blast. But from full screen, it's quite easy. And this is because the super dash has travel time, but so does the Ki Blast. So the level of commitment varies depending on how far away from your opponent you are. Okay, hopefully that helped. Neutral is actually a huge concept, and this video is nowhere near enough to actually talk about all the concepts and things and different ideas that people have about it. So I hope this was not just a good introduction to what it is and what my approach to it is, but also things from beginner to advanced topics. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.